So today we're gonna start with MP neuron. That stands for Macaulay-Pitts neuron, right? And before we jump into the topics of deep learning, let me give you a little bit background about deep learning, how it came into existence, and uh, what future perspective I have with respect to deep learning, right? So just to explain this thing in a nutshell, deep learning is a subset of machine learning, right? It is a learning paradigm which uses human cognition to learn from the data and make decisions from it, right? So how do you make decisions in your real life, right? If I ask you questions, how do you make decisions in your real life, you take in account a lot of parameters, right? For example, if I say that whether you want to watch a movie today, right, you'll consider a lot of parameters. For examples, whether you are having time for watching a movie today or not, or do you have some important appointment, right? So these kind of numerous parameters you'll consider, and after considering all those parameters, you'll finally make a decisions that whether you want to watch a movie or not, right? So we use these kind of paradigm, the way human make decisions, we try to mimic the same logic using computer, right? So it's a, if I have to portray this in a very fantasy way, I would say that in this lectures in or throughout the deep learning course, we'll try to uh, mimic human brain. I know it sounds very ambitious, and but this is how uh, I'll say, if I have to motivate you to learn toward deep learning, right? So but since, as I mentioned, this is a very trending topic, a lot of discoveries are happening on deep learning on daily basis. We may not reach to that level, but definitely we can put the foundation stone, so that even after this course you can do some Google search, you can read through some articles and continue your learning journey, right? So let's start from the history part, how the things has been progressed in deep learning. And to start that, I think the best way is to look some of the previous historic work people have done in the field of domain, I mean deep learning. And the first thing is MP neuron, right? That stands for Macaulay-Pitts neuron. But before that, let us see what is a fundamental building block of deep learning, right? So as I mentioned that uh, deep learning is mimicking the way human make decisions, right? So obviously we make decisions by using our brain, right? And the very fundamental part we have in our brain is neuron, that is called biological neuron. So counterpart of that in artificial intelligence domain is artificial neuron, right? So what artificial neuron is, the diagram which you are seeing on your screen, this is an example of artificial neuron, right? So what happens is, this artificial neuron, it takes input from environment. So you see these are the input values. It takes input x1, x2 till xn, these are the input, right? And each input is having certain weights associated with it, right? And what it does is, it take the weighted combination of inputs, right, and it does summation, and after that it applies certain functions, and then it takes certain decision. Now again, I like to take you back to the example which I have started, whether you want to watch a movie or not, right? So let's say that uh, you take certain parameters. For example, for watching a movie, you think certain parameters, for example, whether you are having time or not, right? So that x1 becomes the availability of time today. It can be 1 or 0, where 1 stands for, yeah, you do have some freedom to today, 0 means you do not have some freedom today, right? X2 maybe whether you are in that mood of watching movie or not, right? Maybe you might have some um, some important thing to take care of. Maybe your son is having some examinations and you have got a responsibility to teach him. So you're not in that mood of watching movie, right? So again, it can be a binary input, 0 or 1. So likewise, there can be number of parameters you can take in account for making these decisions. And not all the input parameters will be equally important, right? So for example, for you to watch a movie, it's very important that you should have some free time available, right? If you do not have some free time available, it doesn't matter whether you're in mood or you are having certain other thing to take care or not, you're not going to watch movie, right? So not all the input parameters that we consider for making decisions are equally important. Some are more important, some are less important, and those importance are represented by these weights, W1, W2 till Wn. So the weights which is higher in magnitude means that that particular input feature is more important to you, right? And finally, the weighted combination of all your input parameter, it goes to this block, right, which applies certain functions. We'll see what that function is a bit later, but for now you can understand that this function aggregates all those input parameters and it makes certain decision, right? You can see the mathematical representation of this, what it is. This is the weighted combination of my input parameter and weights, right? This is the weighted combination of my input parameter and weights. The artificial neuron applies certain function on top of this, right? And based on the result which comes out of this, it makes decision. For example, just to portray the things in simplistic way, I'll say that if the output of this particular function, if it comes as 1, then you decide that you want to watch movie. If it is 0, then you decide that you will not be able to watch movie, right? So are you able to relate how this is connected to the real world, how we make decisions and how we are going to simulate this programmatically? Is this part clear to you?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Now, let me try to again correlate it with the way our brain takes decision, right? So this is the example. So this was the concept from artificial neuron. This is how the artificial neuron works. And this is the case where I'm going to tell you how the natural brain, how the human brain takes decision, right? So this picture, this photo is of neuron, the biological neuron, right? So neuron is nothing but it is a cell in your brain, which is responsible for taking all the decisions, all the cognitive functioning of your body, right? So this is one brain cell, neuron. This is the other brain cell, neuron, and it is consist of certain components, certain parts. For example, dendrite is one, right? So dendrite is nothing but it takes input from your environment. Right?
Astaghfirullah. अच्छा क्लास चल रही है तो मैं क्लास में हाँ खेलने के बैठा हूँ 1 सेकंड
Nazma, can you go on mute?
Excuse me. Yeah, please, sorry. एक सेकंड
Nazma, give me a heads up when you're back.
Just a minute, please.
Sure, sure. I think we can continue. Anyways, this is getting recorded, right? So, yeah. So I was in this slide and I was telling that this is how the natural brain cells looks like. This is one neuron, this is another neuron, and there's a part called dendrite which takes input from the environment, right? You get a sensation of hotness or coldness, right? So how you're getting these sensations? You're getting this sensation by your sensory receptors, which dendrite is collecting, right? And after that, the sensory input is passed to other neuron by a component called synapse, right? And finally, we have a component called soma, which is a kind of a central processing unit of your brain, which makes decision that this particular object is hot. You should immediately pull out your hand from this object, right? So this is how the actual human brain works, and we are trying to mimic that functioning by using artificial neuron, right? So if I have to create an analogy between the biological neuron and artificial neuron, I would say that dendrite dendrite of human brain is some way equivalent to the input x1 x2 till xm of my artificial neuron. Synapses is some way equivalent to our weights, right? Because this weight which we have represented here, it shows that which particular input is more important, which particular input is relatively lesser important. In other way, it shows the degree of association, right? Strength of association between two neurons. And soma, which is a central part of the neuron which makes the decision, it is equivalent to this particular part, which applies certain functions to the weighted aggregated form of all input, right? Now, this concept of artificial neuron, it came into existence long back, and the two very popular scientists who started all this thing are Mikolov and Pitts, right? So this is the Warren Pitts. He was a neuroscientist, and he is known as the father of he is not exactly father, but he is one of the prime person who gave us the concept of artificial neuron. It was very interesting. Let me tell you how this entire artificial neuron came into picture. I think it was the era of Second World War, where the companies were very much focused on coming up with some robots, some sort of humanoid which can make decisions on the battlefield and change the battle entirely, right? So they were very much curious to understand, and a lot of research they were conducting to come up with certain program which can make decisions like human, right? Which can help them to gain certain advantage over their opponents, specifically in warlike scenario, right? It would be really awesome, and even today also this is the fantasy of almost all leading developed nation to come up with some sort of a cyborg soldiers which can take decisions in the battlefield by their own, right? Yeah, so that was that fantasy of people of that time. It laid the foundation stone and fueled the research in artificial neuron, right? And these two people, Walter Pitts, who was the logician, and Nicholas Pitts, he was the neuroscientist. They came together and they proposed their very first model of human brain. Though it was very simplistic, but this was the foundation stone which helped other scientists also to think in this particular domain, right? And this is called their entire piece of work is called threshold logic, right? So this was a term which came into picture, uh, which portrays a overly simplistic version of human brain, right? So though it's not really important to know about these people to learn the concept of deep learning, but we should know who are the people who laid the foundation stone of deep learning, right? So these two people were the first people who gave the first model of artificial neuron, Walter and Pitts, and that too in 1943, right? Now, just a quick questions to you. Just wanted to check whether you are awake or you are actually listening and understanding. The question is, MP neuron is also called as biological neuron, linear threshold gate, non-linear gate. Come on, answer me quickly. I think I have already told this answer a moment ago. So
It's a biological neuron.
It's a biological neuron.
no, MP neuron is the linear threshold gate. See, what was the offering of MP neuron? So this is a neuron which
Non-linear gate?
no, it's the answer is linear threshold gate.
Oh.
It was there in the slide also. The McCullough-Spitz neuron is known as linear threshold gate, right? But I'm curious to understand what made you to answer biological neuron. Biological neuron is this one, right? Biological neuron is this one.
Yeah, this is sorry.
What McCullough-Spitz offered was the artificial neuron, right? And the other way of saying that artificial neuron was linear threshold gate, right? So just be a little bit mindful of this. This is a very common question, and this may be asked in any of the interview that you're giving, and the question and the profile is focusing on deep learning, right? Okay, so I think by now you are familiar that how deep learning came into picture, and a basic flavor of deep learning you might have received. Now let me tell you how we're gonna proceed ahead with this entire concept. So we're gonna divide this entire lectures into total six part. Usually I say that this is a 6 jar of learning. One is the data, the other is task, third is model, fourth is loss, fifth is learning, and the sixth is evaluation. So moving forward, whatever thing that we will be study, we'll try to associate those topic into one of the 6 jar, right? And let's start with the MP neuron model, and we'll see the detail of it now, and we'll try to relate everything that we'll study in MP neuron with these 6 jar, right? So the first jar which will open now is the model jar will open now. Now let us see what is the uh, MP neuron model. Okay, so first of all, what is the model? So model is nothing but it's an approximation of true relationship between input feature and target output, right? So for example, let us say that you want to create a model that will predict the salary of employee by his experience, right? So a very simplistic model without actually doing much research, you can say that that model could be like y equal to 2x, right? Where y is your predicted salary, x is the experience of that particular person, right? So and that will be in year, right? So plus you add some bias, let's say that 10,000. So your model that you have suggested to predict the salary of any person is y equal to 2x plus 1000, 10,000. Okay, so how do we use this model? If the experience of person is 1, right? So 1 year. So what would be the prediction of this model? Y equal to 2 into 1 plus 10,000. That would be how much? 10,000 plus 2, right? Similarly, if the experience of person is 10, so 10 into 2, 20, 20 plus 10,000, right? So this is a linear model which you're suggesting, right? So a model is the approximation of true relationship between my input feature and target output, right? And your model can be either linear or non-linear. Okay, so the model which you are seeing in your screen, can you tell me whether it's a linear model or non-linear model?
Linear model.
Linear.
Correct, yeah, it's a linear model, right? Yeah, so whenever we are trying to build a model for any kind of predictive analytics, there are three questions we should always ask, right? So first is whether my function, the function which will do prediction, will be linear or non-linear, right? So in this particular example, you'll see this is a linear model. This is a linear function, right? So this answer your question one, what kind of function it is? It is linear function. The second is what are the parameters of the function, right? So here if you'll see the parameters of this particular function is what? A and B, where B is your called intercept and A is called slope. If you look carefully, this is nothing but this is the line equation of straight line, right? You must have learned that y equal to mx plus c, where m is the slope, c is the intercept. So here you'll see that m is nothing but a, c is nothing but c, right? So my a and b are the parameters of my model, parameters of my function, where b is called intercept, a is called, sorry, b is called, yeah, b is called intercept, a is called slope, right? The third question you should ask, that what kind of input your model will take and what kind of output it will give, right? So your input to a model can be of two types. One is a discrete input, the other is continuous input, right? And the output of a model can be again of two types. Again, discrete input and continuous, sorry, discrete output and continuous output. If your model is giving a continuous output, then it is called the problem of regression. If your model is giving discrete output, then the problem is called classification problem. Just to give an example, let's say that you want to create a model that will give me temperature of tomorrow, right? So your output can be anything. It can be any real value, right? It can be 16.7 degrees Celsius, 16.5 degrees Celsius. It can take, literally it can take any value, right? So your output is a real number. It can take any of the infinite real value. So this problem is called regression problem. But on the same time, you want to create a model that will tell whether a person is going to get diabetes or not after 1 year or 2 years, right? So in this particular case, your model can yield only binary output, right? It can be either 0 or 1. If your model is giving output of 1, then you may conclude that this particular person is having the chance of getting diabetes. If it is 0, then no, he is not having the risk of getting diabetes. So these kind of problem where model output is discrete value, it's an integral value like 0, 1, 2, 3. That kind of problem is called classification problem, right? So these are the two broad categories of machine learning. Any machine learning problem, broad, I'm saying very broadly, no, I mean, don't take it literally, because there are certain other kinds of problem also, like reinforcement learning. But broadly speaking, any machine learning problem, any supervised learning kind of problem can be divided into two parts. Either it can be a problem of regression, either it will be a problem of classification, right? Any questions till here?
No.
Okay, then let's move ahead. Now let us try to understand the mathematical interpretation of MP neuron, Mikulicz-Betz neuron.
Ashutosh,
Yep,
can I go to previous slide once?
sure.
Okay, here A and B can be imaginary numbers. Huh?
No, it should be actually real value. It can be any number, 1, 2, 3, 0.5, 0.6, anything. So when you say imaginary number, do you mean by complex number, or you mean?
Yes, complex number. Yes.
No. A and B can be any real number. It has to be a
Okay.
real number.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So moving ahead now, let us see the mathematical interpretation of MP neuron. Right. So as I told, MP neuron is one of the first artificial neuron, and it is a very simplistic view of biological neuron, right? And I showed in the previous diagram that it takes many input, right? It takes many input parameters, and it does the aggregation of all those input parameter, and it applies certain function to it, right? And after that, it takes a decision. So there are two part of the central processing unit of MP neuron. One, the part which is in below, it does the aggregation of my input. So what G will do is it will do the summation of all of my input, x1 plus x2 plus x3, right? And then F will apply certain function to it, right? And based on the result which we'll be getting after applying function F, will take the decision, right? So for example, here in this case, till this step, what would be my output? It will be x1 plus x2 plus x3, right? And after that, I'm applying certain function F, right? So let's say that this F is nothing but just a sigmoid function for now, right? And then we are seeing that after applying the sigmoid function, if the value of my result is more than certain constant B, then I'm making a decision that I'll go for watching movie. If it is below that particular constant, I'll say that no, I don't want to watch movie. I have certain other things to take care of, right? Take it in this way. Let me try to relate this with a real life example to you. Uh, let's say that I'm working in my office, right? And I have to do certain tasks. So right now I have in my mind that I have to do that particular task, but I'm not getting much motivation for doing that, right? But what will happen if all of my colleague will come to me and they will start saying me that you have to do this task, you have to do this task. I, I'll take all of their input, whatever input they are giving. I'll take all the input, and I'll say that yeah, I'll do that task because I'm getting this same thing, the same kind of suggestion from majority of people, majority of my colleague, right? So if the count of suggestion which I'm getting, if it is beyond certain threshold, let's say that out of my 5 colleagues, 4 of them came to me and say that you should do this particular task. Probably I'll think of doing that task and I'll do it because majority of my colleague is saying. Whereas out of those 5 colleagues, only 2 people are saying that you should just do this task, and 3 are saying that you should not do this task. I'll not do, right? So you understand how I'm taking this decision? Similarly, artificial neuron also do that. If the output of that function, if it is more than certain constant, which is B here, it takes decision. The output would be 1. If it is lesser than that particular constant, then the output will be 0, right? And the entire learning process goes around this particular value B, right? The entire learning process in machine learning, the entire learning process goes in figuring out this optimal value of B. Okay. So what this B is nothing but it's a parameter that is adjusted with the aim of maximizing the number of correct prediction. You know, in this entire framework, only B is a part which we can learn, which we can play with, right? You have to come up with that optimal value of B which will maximize your correct prediction. Understand? So we'll understand how to figure out the optimal value of B. But till this part it is clear. Now there's a one line, the input can be excitatory or inhibitory. So what this means is, let's say that, again, we'll go back to the same example, watching movie or not. Okay. Let's say that you are having enough time to you, with you, you are in mood of watching movie. Everything is saying that you can go ahead and watch movie, but there's only one feature. Let's say that you are down with fever in that particular day, right? So it is for sure that you will not go and watch movie. Doesn't matter whether you're having time, doesn't matter you are having responsibility of your kid. You cannot go ahead and watch movie, right? Because you're down with fever. So that particular input feature is called inhibitory input feature, right? But for all the practical applications that we're going to cover in this entire course, we will not consider inhibitory input. We'll consider that all the input we're going to see in our framework, all are excitatory, right? There won't be any input which will predetermine the output of your model. Okay. Now, just answer me this question quickly. Presence of inhibitory input prevents the neuron from firing no matter what. True or false? Come on, answer
True.
this. Yeah, that's true.
True.
Correct. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Because just now we have covered, right? Okay. Now let me quickly cover this slide also, and then we can see the rest of the topic of MP neuron tomorrow. We have less than 2 minutes now. Yeah. So we covered the first jar. We covered the model jar, right, of MP neuron. Now let us open the other jar, which is the data jar, right? And if you recall, in our list of questions that we should ask whenever we are building a model, the second question, the third question was, we should ask the question whether the model will take real input or it is going to take binary input, and what kind of output the model will give, right? So we'll answer that question in this slide. Let's say that take an example from the cricket field, okay, where that umpire has to make decision of, let's say, like before wicket, right? So how does an umpire make that decision? There are certain features he takes in account, right? He check whether the ball was pitched in the line, what was the impact, whether the ball was missing the stump or not, right? And based on that he makes a decision. This is the data he has, he considers, right? And if the ball was pitched in the line, impact was in the line, it was not missing, in that case he is out, right? So these input which is considering is the binary input, right? And the output he'll be making is also a binary input, whether the person is whether the batsman is out or not, 0 or 1, right? So one limitations with MP neuron is it can only work with binary input and binary output. We'll see the mathematical interpretation of it tomorrow. We have less than a minute here, but this is the theoretical aspect of MP neuron. I'll spin another bridge right after this call. If you have any questions from this topic or previous topic, you can ask that question. Okay. All right.